What is up, guys? Fire here, but you already know that, do you? Anyways, welcome to another Unreal Engine tutorial. This time we have a first-person shooter C++ game. Yeah, C++, yeah, give me it. I have a lot of things to say, but I know you don't want to hear, so let's just take a look at the game that we are going to create. So this is the layout of the game. As you can see, we have this huge level. It is a big level, and we have all of these enemies here that are waiting for us where we need to pass by so that we can get all the way through here. And I'm going to speed it up, and then here to this door, and this is the end of the game. We of course have a timer, and we also, have the enemies who are attacking us. So if I preview the game, if I hit the play button, you will see the timer here. I also have my player health at the bottom left, and the enemies have their own health. I can shoot the enemies, and you can also hear all of that. Look at that. So there you go, shoot, and one more time, and the enemy is dead. And this is too loud, so I think I need to, lower the volume just a little bit. There you go. But anyways, this is, basically the game. So we need to pass by here, shoot these enemies. Of course, you will have assignments in this, mini course where you will have to create your own system for having, a limited number of weapons, actually bullets, and so on and so forth. And the enemies, when they get close to me, look at that. So they are going to deal damage, you see, and this is too much damage. As you can see, too much damage. I'm going to kill this bad boy. Come on, ding ding ding. I don't know what this ding ding was, but anyways, this is our game, as you can see, and all of this is created in C++, of course, with combinations with blueprints, but 5% blueprints, because we simply cannot avoid blueprints. When you create something in C++, you need to convert that into a blueprint to use it right here in the editor or in your game. But the important part is that we will learn a lot of cool things, such as AI perception, which is basically giving your enemies the ability to have sight, hearing, and stuff like that. So yeah, that will be it. As you can see, the game looks simple, but we're going to learn a lot of cool and complicated things, such as the AI perception and the sight component of it, and how to use that in order to detect the player, and so on and so forth. So a lot of useful info is inside of this mini course, and yeah, I don't have anything else to say except, subscribe, like, and all of that stuff, and let's get into the game and create this really cool game. What up, peoples? We are back again with Unreal Engine, and again, this time we are going to, as always, create a game with C++ and Unreal Engine. So this is a new project. As you can see, I have the project browser, and over here we are going to create a game because we're not a TV producers and architectures and automotive people. So we're going to click here, next, and we are going to select the first person. So not blank project, not the puzzle, flying, whatever. We want the first person, and go here, and again, when I say go here, I mean next. And over here we have the blueprint. So we're going to change to C++. Everything else can stay the same with starter content because we need it. I need the starter content so badly. And over here, I am going to name this one Monster Shooter. There you go, because we shoot monsters, okay? Vampires or whatever. And we are going to click here to create a project. Now, of course, you know that, it's tedious with Unreal Engine and all of that stuff. It takes, probably a year or two for it to load and compile. Unity is getting closer, it takes a lot of time also to create and compile and whatnot. So I am probably going to, cut out the video right here, and I will see you back, hopefully, if this, finishes up until tomorrow. So yeah, let's wait, and I will see you when this, the project loads. Finally, Unreal Engine showed mercy and decided to create a project, and here we are. Now, of course, before we proceed, because we are going to first cover the player and all of that stuff, we are also going to import our own mesh, because over here we have the meshes folder, and this is not what we want. Instead, we want this. Let me just go back here, content, and I'm going to right click over here, and new folder, and create the meshes folder over here. At the top, you see content. And over here, we're going to import our own mesh, which is basically the vampire or the 3D model that we are going to use. Now, you will be able to download it. Link will be down below this video. So just click on the link, it will start downloading. And also, you will have a complete project. So this finished project that we are currently doing, you can also download it. This is for reference purposes that you can download, maybe copy and paste some code that you don't want to type out, or compare your code to mine, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to simply drag and drop the vampire over here. We do need to make sure to import all. well, and wait for the vampire to import. Now, hopefully this is not going to take too long, because in the meantime I can sing to you or whatnot. Don't worry about whatever warning you got, so don't worry about that. Next, I'm going to import his idle animation over here, import all, and last but not least, I'm going to import the vampire running animation. There you go. Let's go over here and import, and there you go. So now I am not going to do anything with the monster, with the vampire and whatnot. We are going to do that later on, so don't worry about that. This is just for, saving purposes. So the first step that we are going to do is we are going to create our game character. So we're going to go here inside of our C++ classes and monster shooter, and over here we have the monster shooter character and all of that stuff. We don't want all of this. We simply want to click here, new C++ class that will inherit from the character itself, and I'm going to click on next, and I am going to call this one monster. So monster shooter character, this is the name of our class, and I'm going to hit here create class. And I have issues when I talk, as you probably noticed. Anyways, it is not important. By the way, I have a new blog that is hopefully out. I mean, the day I'm recording this video, the blog is still being made, but the day this video will be published, the blog will probably be up. So you will see a link down below. If you like written tutorials, you don't want to listen to my voice and whatnot, maybe you hate it or whatever. So I'm just going to double click this and open it here, reload all. You can also follow along. Maybe I will have this tutorial in a written form as well. I don't know. Just, comment down below if you like written tutorials and if you like me to create more written tutorials on my blog. So over here, right below the player setup player input component, I am going to create a public properties. So the first one is going to be property or uProperty, and this is going to be visible defaults only. And from here, we're going to say category is equal to mesh, and also, well, over here, closing the parentheses, and I'm going to declare it as a class uSkeletal mesh component with a star because it's a pointer, and I'm going to call this one hands mesh, which is going to be our hands that we're going to use to shoot. Now, moving forward, I'm also going to copy this over here, and we already know what this visible defaults only is, what the category is. The category will put it under the category mesh when we try to search it inside of the blueprint. Visible defaults only will make the properties visible of the skeletal default or skeletal mesh component. Next, we are also going to have another skeletal mesh component. So I'm simply going to paste all of this here, but this time we're not going to call it hands mesh, but I'm going to call it guns or gun mesh. Because, we have hands that, are hands, and we also have guns that those hands are holding. So next we are going to have uProperty, but let me just go over here and copy this so that we don't have to every single time type it out. So we have the visible defaults only, category mesh, but this one is going to be class u scene component. There you go. And this one is going to be the muzzle location, or basically the location from where we are going to shoot. Paste again the uProperty, and this one is not going to be visible defaults, but this one is going to be visible anywhere. So it's anywhere. There you go. The category I'm going to say here is equal to camera, and I'm also going to make it blueprint. So blueprint read only, so that we can also read it in the blueprint. And over here, class uCamera. It's not it's camera component. There you go. And I'm going to call this one first person camera or FPS camera, however you want to call it. Now, next, we're going to have a few more variables for the movement. And over here, I'm going to say uProperty. And this one is going to be visible anywhere and blueprint. So blueprint read only, category is going to be equal to camera. So camera, there you go, close the parentheses. And this one is going to be our float turn rate. I am also going to copy this right here and paste it over here, because it's also going to be, or this variable is going to be a uProperty, visible anywhere, blueprint reads only, category camera, and instead of turn rate, this is going to be our look up rate. There you go. And we're also going to have the gun offset, and this one is going to be uProperty, and I'm going to say edit anywhere, and over here it's going to be blueprint So blueprint read write, and the category is going to be equal to gameplay, like that. And this one is going to be our f vector gun offset. There you go. And we're going to use this gun offset to offset the gun, and we're going to see that, don't worry. Next, we are going to have protected variables, or basically protected functions. The first one is going to be void on fire. This tutorial is on fire. There you go. I'm also singing. So over here, we're also going to have void move forward. There you go. It's forward, like that, and takes a float value as a parameter. We're also going to have void move right, and takes a float value as a parameter. Void turn at rate, having a float rate parameter, and void look at rate, having a float rate parameter. Now you can of course pause the video and copy all of these, because these are the default functions that we every single time we need to create, because, you know, it's simple. We need those in order for, you know, everything to work. I mean, move forward, move right, look, turn at rate, look at rate. So over here for the fire, I'm going to right click on it and quick actions and refactoring. And over here, we're going to create that declaration inside of the C++ class, because we know that in the .h file, we only declare things, and then we need to implement them inside of the C++ file. So over here, do the same thing for all of these. It will save us time instead of us going out there in the class and typing all of this out. So right click, quick actions, refactoring, and there you go. So you can now go over here and see that all of these are created. So move forward, move right, look at rate, turn at rate, and all of that stuff. And over here, we are first going to have some includes, and I'm simply going to paste them. So we have the includes for the camera, for the capsule, and for the input component. Now, what's important for you to, you know, do is do these includes right away. So don't wait for whatever, just do the includes, pause the video and do that. I have a practice of doing these includes, you know, right when we start with the tutorial, or when we start with a certain part of the tutorial, so that I don't go back and forth every single time we need a certain component in the code and, oh, I need to include this as well. Oh, I forgot to include this. You get the point. So do the includes right here, right now. Otherwise, I will kidnap you and teach you game development. Okay, so moving forward over here inside of the constructor is where we are going to construct everything. So the first step is to get the capsule component, and from it I am going to init capsule size and set the size to 40 f and 95. 0.0f. This is the default value of the capsule, and of course we can change that in the editor, but I like to do things, you know, like this when we do C++ code. I don't know about you, but I really like typing out code, so maybe somebody doesn't like it, so there you go. So turn rate is going to be equal to 45.0f. There you go. Lookup rate is going to be equal to also 45.0f. Now, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create the camera component. And, well, in order to create a camera, we simply need to say first person camera is equal to create default sub object type of view camera component, and text over here, which is going to be the name. So inside of text, we're going to give the camera the name first person camera. Simple as that. What do you expect? I'm not going to give it the name Carl. It's not my child, okay? First person camera, and from here we're going to say set up attachment, and we're going to attach it on the capsule component. So get capsule component. There you go. This is where we are going to attach the first person camera. I'm also going to add relative location. So first person camera, and I'm going to say add relative location, and the relative location is going to be f vector, and the location is going to be minus 39.56 f for the x, for the y 1.75 f, and last but not least 64 0.0f on the z-axis. Now relative location, if I hover over, does it have an explanation? No, but the relative location is basically location relative to the parent of this component. So the first person camera's position will be relative to the get capsule or the capsule component. I'm also going to say here first person camera and B use pawn control rotation equal to true. We talked about this in our previous videos. I cannot remember exactly which tutorial that was, but I demonstrated like when we don't use the pawn control rotation, when we use the pawn control rotation. So basically this gives the control over the rotation of the pawn. So that is it. Next, we are going to create a mesh component that will be used, that we are going to view from the first person, and that is the hands mesh. So hands mesh is going to be equal to create default. So default sub object type is going to be use skeletal mesh component. So mesh component, there you go. And over here it's going to have text in the parentheses, and for the text over here we're going to say character mesh. So moving forward after that, we're going to only make the owner see those hands. What does that mean? That means the following. So hands mesh, from here set only owner see, and from there we are going to set that to be equal to true. This will make only the owner or us having this component see those hands. And this is without this excess. It's only set only owner see. Now, of course, this is not mandatory. It will not change the game at all, but I'm just showing you different options that we have, because maybe you're creating a game on your own and you want some of these options. Well, here they are. So next I'm going to call the hands mesh, and we're going to set up attachment, and we're going to set it up on the first person camera. So this is where we are going to attach these hands on the first person camera that is attached on the capsule component that we already saw. Next, we are going to say hands mesh, and from here I'm going to say cast dynamic shadow. So cast dynamic shadow is equal to false. This is self-explanatory. It will not cast any dynamic shadows. It will also over here, so hands mesh cast shadow, it's also going to be false, because why? We don't need all of this, you know. Again, these are just options that I'm showing you. So next I'm going to say here hands mesh, I'm going to add relative rotation. Excuse me, I wanted to say rotation and location at once, so rotation or something like that. F rotator, and over here I am going to set the value 1.9f for the x, minus 19.19f for the y, and 5.2 for the z-axis. There you go. So this is the relative rotation. I'm also going to say hand mesh and add the relative location, and this time f vector, it's vector like that, and over here I am going to add minus 0.5 f, and I added in quotes. We don't want to do that in quotes. Okay, next we are going to say minus 4.4 f and minus 55.7 f, and there you go. So this is the relative location. We are almost done. We only need to create the gun. So gun mesh is going to be equal to create default sub object of use skeletal mesh component. There you go. Text over here to give it a name. So the name is going to be gun, you know, like I don't know, like some hood gangster gun. Okay, so gun mesh, from here we're going to say set only owner see. Here it is, true, and only the owner will see the gun, same as what we did with the hands. Our gun mesh, so it's gun mesh, there you go. Cast dynamic shadow is equal to false, and our gun mesh, from here cast shadow is also going to be equal to false. There you go. And our muzzle location and gun offset, that's the only thing that we need to also create. So gun mesh, actually the muzzle location, not the gun mesh. So muzzle location is going to be equal to create default sub object u scene component, and text over here. And for this one I'm going to say muzzle location, or basically the location from where the bullet is going to come out. Our muzzle location, set up attachment, we're going to attach it on the gun mesh, there you go. And our muzzle location from here, set relative location, is going to be f vector, so f vector, and one more parenthesis, so the f vector 0.2 f 48.4f and minus 10.6f. There you go. Our gun offset is going to be equal to f vector, and the value is going to be 100, f for the x, 0.0 for the y, and 10.0f for the z-axis. Now notice over here, we did the setup attachment for all these components except for the gun mesh. Now for the gun mesh, we didn't do the setup attachment over here inside of the constructor. Instead, we're going to do it here in the begin play. So over here, we're going to say gun mesh, and from here, attach to component, and we're going to attach it to the hands mesh. And we're going to say over here, F attachment transform rules. And over here, we're going to say snap to target, not including scale. And last but not least, text. And over here, we are going to say grip point. Now, the reason why I did it in the begin play is because doing it in begin play is safer, because the skeletal mesh is not yet created here in the constructor, so it can happen that this will not work. But when we do in the begin play, it will work. Now I will talk about this F attachment, transform rules, what is this grip point, and all of that stuff in the next video, because this video is already getting long, not what I planned to do, but I just want to compile everything, make sure that we don't have any errors, because, you know, I want to make sure that everything that we typed is okay and it's not okay. So I have a problem over here. On line 40 in the .h, I'm missing comma in the variable declaration. So let me just quickly go here, 40, okay, here it is. After our blueprint read only, I need to add comma. And, you know, you can forget things because you type too fast. You are a perfect programmer like I am and all that stuff. Just kidding. But anyways, you get the point. So this is basically it for this video. In the next video, I will explain what this is. We will create a blueprint out of this. We will continue to code and all of that stuff. If something is not clear, just make sure that you ask in the comment down below. But all of this that we did so far is nothing new. We already know how to create components if you went through any of my tutorials and all of that stuff. So, yep, fire here from awesomedudes.com. You already know that. You're on the channel, you're on the website or whatever. Make sure to check out the blog, and I will see you guys in the next video. What is up, my game dev gangsteronios? In the previous video, we stopped over here with the attaching the gun mesh, and I said that I will explain what this is. So basically what does this mean is that we are going to attach the gun mesh on the hands mesh, and these are the rules that we are going to use for that attachment. So snap to the target, not including scale. So the scale is going to be untouched for the gun. So if we set the scale 100 by 100 for the gun, it's not going to be touched no matter what the scale of the hands mesh is. Now, what is this grip point? Well, basically the grip point is where we are going to attach the gun mesh on the hands mesh. What does that even mean? Well, that means if I go over here, and this is where the hands are located. So in the first person folder, character, and then mesh, and these are the hands. So if I double click these hands, we are going to open them right here. Now, if we go into the skeleton of these hands, you will notice over here that we have something called a grip point. Look at that. So this is that grip point. And if I come closer to the hands where the grip point is, you see, this is where it is going to be attached. Now, in one of my previous tutorials, I have shown you how we can create our own custom snapping socket name or whatever. Basically, you just, you know, choose where you want to create it, then you right click and then you add a socket and you give it a name. The name is important because here in the code, you're going to reference that name so that you attach your desired component on that socket. So this is what we are doing, and this is where this grip point is. So this is where the weapon or the gun mesh is going to be attached. Now, in order for us to demonstrate that, we do need to create a blueprint. So over here inside of the content, we can right click and create a new folder for blueprints. And for this bad boy, I'm going to go inside, create a blueprint class that is going to inherit. So here, all classes, we are going to say monster shooter character. So this is the one that we are going to inherit. And I'm going to say BP underscore monster shooter character. There you go. And double click this bad boy, open him, you know, in Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, in the editor, not the Visual Studio. So we need to open him in the editor. So over here, there you go. So we have the character mesh. This is the mesh, the one that comes by default. These are our hands that we are going to use and attach. So basically over here for our hands, I am going to choose the hands. So let me just find them, mannequin hands or arms. Here they are. This is what we want. Now I'm also going to attach the blueprint for the animation for these, and this is going to be first person anim. There you go, which is automatically going to position them right here, as you can see. Now, when it comes to the gun, we also need to go over here. Let me just compile and save that. So go over here for the gun, and we need to search the gun. So let me just find it. Here is the gunny. And, you know, compile and save that. So there you go. So this is where my gun is going to be, and I believe the gun should be a little bit more behind, I think. I'm not sure 100%, but let's go over here inside of our map. And what I'm going to do also here in the C++ class, I'm going to right click and create a new C++ class and click here to show all classes and filter for the game mode. And I want to inherit from the game mode, not the game mode base, but the game mode. And I'm going to click here next, and I'm going to call this one monster shooter game mode. Simple as that. Or monster shooter underscore game mode. This I'm going to call monster shooter game mode. And I am going to click here, create class, which is of course going to do, you know, all of the heavy lifting and whatnot and yada, yada, yada. You get the point and all of that stuff. So let us just wait for it, and I can sing to you all this time. Yada, 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 na, 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 na. Reload everything. Now, the reason why I created our own game mode is because we need to create a blueprint out of it. So let's go here into the blueprints and right click blueprint class and filter for my monster shooter game mode. Here it is, and I'm going to say BP underscore monster shooter underscore game mode, so that we can go here inside of our project settings and then maps and modes and change the default game mode to our own. So BP monster shooter game mode, so that we can also change the default pawn class to our BP monster shooter character. Now the reason for that is now when we hit the play button to actually run the game, our game character is going to be the one that's going to be spawned. But let me just click on this character over here for whatever reason. Where is the character? So first person character, here he is. I can delete this. We don't need him over here. I can have this one over here for spawning the character. This is the start of the character, right? So yeah, basically, as I said, when we run the game, our own character is going to be spawned. And we can test that out by hitting the play button, and there you go. So if I eject myself, we are going to see that we have spawned the character. Look at that, he is being spawned, and look at where the weapon is being spawned. It's right in the socket that I showed you a moment ago. So let me just find it. It was in the first person, not PPP, FPS. Actually, let me just go here in the content, and then first person, and then FPS weapon, and then meshes, and here it is. Actually, this is the gun. You know, I forget where this is, so excuse me for that one. So it's first person and character and then mesh, and here it is. Finally I know where it is. And when we go into skeleton, again, having the grip point, if I zoom in on the grip point and I pressed F to go directly to the grip point, you see it's in the hand. And if I go here in the map, voila, there you go. He is already spawned here in the map. So this video is more about explaining what, is happening and all of that stuff. So in the next video, we're going to start to code the movement of our character. Then we're going to start creating the level and all of that part or that stuff and yada, yada, yada. If something was not clear when it comes to this video and the explanations that we did and what is, a socket and all of that stuff, just make sure you ask in the comment down below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Where else I'm going to see you? I'm going to see you in jail. Because, I don't go to jail, you go. And yeah, so we cannot see each other. I will see you in the next video. Alrighty then, my game dev gangsta Roni. Oh, now we are going to create the movement for the player. Because even if I hit the play button, try to move, nothing is happening. You get the point. So we are going to go into the project settings, and here for the input, we have everything already predefined. But we don't need all of this. So over here, I am going to have jump and fire, but reset VR, no, I don't need that. So over here for the fire, I'm also going to remove all of this here. We only need the left mouse button, nothing else. For the jump, we also need the space, nothing else. So all of this right here can be safely deleted. We are going to have move forward, but for the move forward, we're going to have WS up and down. All of these others, we don't need them. Why should we? For the move right, we need the A and the D. That's all. So let's go over here. Remove all of this. Remove. For the turn and turn rate, so basically this over here, we don't need the turn rate like this. So we can simply delete it. Here we have the lookup rate and the lookup. So lookup rate, I'm also going to delete. We need the turn and lookup. So the turn has the mouse X and the lookup has the mouse Y. And all of this right here, this is what we need. Of course, I can also delete the up and down or add here left and right arrow key. That is totally up to you. But what is the next step is to go inside of our script, inside of our CPP, and over here set up player attachment. So set up player input component basically to bind the functionality to input. So what we need to do over here is we need to call the player input component. So component like that, and we are going to bind the action. Jump is the first one that we're going to do, i.e. pressed. So when we press the jump button inside of this, I am going to call, let me just see over here, I almost tried to search for the jump functionality, but we have the A character, that colon, I almost said dash, jump. There you go. So this is already built into our character. I can copy this and paste it here. So now I'm going to do that for the do it for the E released. And over here, I'm going to say stop jumping. So when you release the button, we are going to stop the jumping. Simple as that. Next, I'm also going to take our player input component and bind the action. And the action is going to be over here, fire. So fire, this section is on fire. Anyways, when we press the when IE is pressed inside of this, we want to call the fire functionality, which is this one over here. We're not going to code it right now, but as I said, when we go through things that we want to do, I don't want to, just skip this and then later on when we actually want to shoot, I come back, oh, we also need to bind the component. No, I might forget and stuff like that, so I'm going to do it right now. You can do some UE log, for example, just to print out to see if this actually works, but we know that it is going to work. I'm also going to take the player input component and we are going to bind the axes. So bind the axes, and this time is going to be move forward axes inside of this, and we're going to set here our move forward. So simply copy this here and add the and sign. There you go. Next, I'm going to copy this and paste it down below because this time we have the move right. So move right, and also calling the move right function. Last but not least, we have two more. So I'm simply going to copy these and paste them over here. So one is going to be the turn. The other one is going to be look up. There you go. And over here, we are going to call the turn at rate. And over here, we're going to call look at rate. Simple as that. So this is how we bind, and this is not the first time that we're doing this, so we already know how to do it. Now here inside of move forward, we are going to test if the value, which is this parameter over here, so if the value is not equal to 0.0f, meaning we are actually pressing the button. Then we are going to say add movement input, and we are going to say over here get actor forward vector and comma here and pass the value so that we know where we are going. You can assume what we're going to do for the move right. The same thing, so copy over here, but this time we're not going to say get actor forward vector. Instead over here we're going to say get actor right vector, because we are always right. Now over here we are going to calculate delta for the frame of the turn. So what we are going to do over here is we are going to say add controller yaw input, and we are going to use the rate that is the parameter over here. So using the rate multiplied with the turn rate, and then we're going to multiply that with the get world, and from the world we're going to get the delta seconds like this. And as I said, this is going to calculate the delta for this frame from the rate information, which is going to make it a little bit smoother. And going back over here, pasting this, the look rate, but this time it's not going to be add controller yaw input, it's going to be the pitch input. So over here I'm going to say pitch input, and again we're going to use the rate over here, the parameter, but this time is not the turn rate, it's the look up rate that we are going to use, and multiply that with the world and delta seconds. So Control Shift B to compile all of this and make sure that we didn't do any oopsies, which is the case. There you go. Let me just turn off my volume because I don't want you to hear this. It's embarrassing and whatnot, just kidding, but you get the point. So over here we bound the functionality. We know already what this is, and in case some beginner is watching this, what is this jump, what is this fire, this move forward? Well, it's basically this functionality over here. So this is the jump, this is the fire, move forward, move right, turn, and all of that stuff. So we are binding these functions to those, to those axes and inputs, which means when we press the space bar, you see over here for the jump, or let's do it for the move forward. So when we press the W or S key, then we are going to execute the move forward function, which is this one right here. And we can go inside of our editor and we can test it out. So if I hit the play button, you see, I can rotate now, look up and down, and I can move forward. Look at that. I can also jump. You see, I'm jumping. Look at that. Jumpy, 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 jumpy. You get the point. I'm jumping. So there you go. So look, or we can turn, we can look up, we can look down. I can move backwards, forward, left, and right. And there you go. So basically, this is how easy it is to set up the moon. This is for you who are beginners and watching this. And I know this is not a complete beginner tutorial, but I cannot prevent beginners from watching it for whatever reason. I cannot put some internet wall that doesn't allow you to do that, but you get the point. Anyways, if something is not clear, what we did over here, as I said and already explained, so we only bound the axes that we have over here inside of our project settings. So move forward, that is the name. If here the name is movement, so if we change from move forward to movement, over here we will also change from move forward to movement. So those names need to match up. And then over here, this is just the function that is bound to that axis or action. That's all there is to it. So when we press the appropriate buttons that we have designated for move forward, move right, turn, look up, these appropriate functions that are bound to those axes or actions will execute. So there you go. If something is not clear, ask in the comment down below. I will not help you out. I will just ignore your comment. I'm just kidding. I will try to help you out as best as I can, and I will see you guys in the next video. Moving forward, now that we have our character and he is moving, let us create the projectile before we can start shooting. And in order for us to do that, we need to go over here inside of our C++ files and all of that stuff. So we are going to right click and go here, new C++ class that is going to inherit from the actor. And from there, we're going to click on next. And from here, instead of my actor, I'm simply going to call it projectile. And this is going to be the projectile. You can also call it bullet or however you want to call it. Okay, that is up to you. you. You can call it Carl, Kenny, I don't know. But anyways, I'm going to call it projectile. So let me just lower my volume so that we don't hear all of those noises when, you know, something has compiled and all of that stuff. Let's go over here, reload everything inside of our CPP file, or actually in the Visual Studio, and right here below our tick. So this is where we are going to create our own properties, and we are going to create a U property, and this one is going to be visible defaults only. And from there, we are also going to set it into the category, which is going to be equal to projectile. And this is, again, when you want to locate it inside of a blueprint, you can find it under the projectile category. So over here, I'm going to say class U sphere component. And from there, I'm going to call it collision sphere, which is going to, and it's not CP, it's collision sphere. And this one is going to be the sphere that we are going to use to detect collision with the player and other components in the game. So next we have the U property, and this one is going to be visible anywhere, and this one's going to be blueprint read only, and it's going to be category equal to movement, and this one is going to be class U projectile movement component. So we are going to use the projectile movement component to propel the projectile to move, and I'm going to call it projectile movement. There you go. Next, we are going to create a U function, and this one is going to be our detection for the hit. And over here, I'm going to call it void on hit, and it takes a lot of these parameters, as you already know. So U primitive component, which is a pointer, hit component. It also takes an actor, which is, you know, also a pointer, other actor that we are going to test if we, you know, hit, or who is the other actor that we hit. U primitive component, which also is a pointer, other component, and then int 32 other body index, and bool b from sweep, and last but not least, constant f hit result, which we are going to call hit. Now, of course, we don't need all of these parameters, but they are mandatory for us to, well, create or to declare this function. So we need to do it. And also the last step, we are going to have a U property, not proper2, it's property. And this one is going to be edit anywhere, and it's going to be a float damage value. By default, it is going to be equal to 20. Now this damage value is going to be the damage that we are going to deal to the enemy when we hit it. And over here, I'm going to go and click on, so right click on hit, and from here create declaration inside of the C++ file. So over here inside of the C++, automatically this will be created, so we don't have to, you know, type this out on our own. Now, when it comes to the CPP file, we know that over here we are going to implement everything. So right below, I am going to include everything that we need to include. I'm also going to include over here, so I'm going to say include, and this one is going to be enemy.h. Now, we still didn't create the enemy, so I am going to simply comment this out, otherwise we will have issues, but I'm going to leave it there so that later on when we actually create the enemy, we know that we need to include it. Because again, I don't like to go back and forth every single time. Oh, we created an enemy, let's go and include it and all of that stuff. So over here inside of the constructor for the projectile, we are going to say our collision. So collision sphere is going to be equal to create default sub object of U sphere component, and that sphere component, we are going to give it a name with a text over here. So the name is going to be sphere collision. And the sphere component, we are going to set the initial radius to 20. So I'm going to say collision sphere, and from here init radius or init sphere radius, we're going to set that to 20, as I already said. It's 20f, not 20.f0. I'm also going to set the sphere to be the root component, so I'm going to say root component is equal to the collision sphere, there you go, which is going to set the sphere as the root of all other components that we are going to add to the projectile. Now for the projectile movement, so projectile movement is going to be equal to create default sub-object of U projectile movement, and from there give it a text or basically a name, which is inside of a text, and I'm going to call it projectile movement. Now right here below over here I'm going to say projectile movement, and we are going to say updated component is going to be equal to collision sphere, or basically what does this mean? So it's collision sphere. Let me just take it from here and copy and paste it. So the updated component basically means who is the projectile movement moving. So who is he moving? He's moving the collision sphere, which is the root component, which is going to move all other components that are below it. Also over here, our projectile movement, we are going to set initial speed to be equal to 3000 because we want our projectile to be fast as a, something that's fast. Projectile movement from here, max speed is also going to be equal to 3000 because this is power level over 2000. It's not over 3000 because it is, you get the point. Projectile movement, we are going to say B rotation follows velocity is going to be equal to true. So rotation follows velocity. This is self-explanatory. The projectile will rotate according to the velocity. And our projectile movement from here, we're going to say B should bounce is going to be equal to true. So we are going to be able to bounce. Now I'm also going to set the initial lifespan of the projectile, which is going to be here. So initial lifespan, that's going to be equal to 3 seconds, which means if we don't hit anything after 3 seconds, the projectile will be destroyed simply after 3 seconds. That's all there is to it. Now over here inside of begin play, this is where we need to connect. So our collision sphere, and from here we need to say on component begin overlap add dynamic, and over here is where we are going to connect this function. So I'm simply going to copy it, and from here I'm going to say this and then and sign and paste the function that we want to provide over here. So again, we need to do this in on begin play because if we do it inside of the constructor, it is not going to work. If I don't forget, when we create the enemy, I will test it out by simply, just to demonstrate what happens if we call it inside of the constructor as opposed what happens when we call it in on begin play. But we also did this numerous of times in my other tutorial, so it's not something new that we didn't do so far. So Control Shift B for this to compile. So let us just wait for this to compile. Let's see if I have any oopsies, and I don't. So build one succeeded. There you go. So what I'm going to do now is go and create a blueprint from this, because in the next video we are going to start to shoot it. So inside of blueprints, I'm going to right click in blueprint class, and I'm going to filter for projectile. And here it is. And from there, I'm going to say BP projectile and go inside of the blueprint so that we can, add everything what we need. Are we in the viewport? Yes, we are. What I'm doing. So I'm in the viewport. So here we have the collision sphere. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to attach a static mesh component. So over here, I'm going to say static mesh. There you go. It's simple as that. And this is going to be our projectile mesh. Now, of course, I can also create this from the blueprint, but actually from the code, but I'm also going to demonstrate how you're going to mix blueprints and code, because this is what happens all the time with Unreal Engine. So you need to mix blueprints and code. It's simple as that. Now over here for the static mesh, I'm going to filter for projectile first person projectile. It's a huge sphere. So over here, I'm going to click on the lock icon and set the scale for all 3 axes to 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1. So there you go. Now this is it when it comes to creating the projectile. We still cannot test it out because I don't want to make this video too big and stuff like that. It's already 10 minutes and so on and so forth. So starting from the next video, we are going to see how this projectile is going to work, how we are going to propel it, and all of that stuff. But if something is not clear when it comes to creating the projectile, just make sure that you ask in the comment down below. Now, all of this here that we did, it's nothing new, maybe the projectile movement, but you can, just read from the functions or what we did. They are self-explanatory. But again, if something is not clear, make sure that you ask, and I will also help you out. In the next video, we're going to start shooting the projectile. I will see you guys then. Now that we have the projectile, we can put it or add it to the monster character and use it for our shooting. So over here inside of our .h file, right after we create all of this look at rate and all of this stuff, we are going to create new variables and they are going to be public. So one is going to be uProperty and this one is going to be edit defaults only. And I'm going to say category is equal to not category, category is equal to projectile. Now, what I'm also going to do, or how am I going to declare this? This is going to be RT subclass, so subclass, not subcase, subclass of, and over here I'm going to say class a projectile, and I'm going to call it projectile. Simple as that. And it's with one R, and they are both lowercase, or basically one R and it's lowercase, not both. So moving forward, we are also going to add the sound that we are going to play when we shoot. So over here, I'm going to say uProperty, and this one is going to be edit anywhere, and I'm going to call it, or set here, blueprint read write. I'm also going to set the category to be equal to gameplay, and this one is going to be our class u sound base, which we are going to call fire sound or shoot sound, or however you want to call it. And moving forward, we are going to create another uProperty, and this one is going to be edit anywhere, blueprint read write, so blueprint read write, category, so category is going to be equal to gameplay, and this one is going to be our class uAnimMontage, which is a pointer, and we are going to call it fire animation, which is basically the animation that we are going to use to preview when we shoot. So when we shoot, this is the animation that's going to be played. Now over here, we're going to say class uAnimInstance, which is a pointer, and I'm going to call animInstance. This is I'm going to call it. Next, we are going to have a class uWorld, and I'm going to call it world, and it's a pointer, so not a parenthesis, world, like that. fRotator, spawn rotation for the projectile, and f vector, this is going to be the spawn location for the projectile. So these are the variables that we currently need. Now over here inside of our monster.cpp at the top, we are going to add the includes. So you can just pause the game and add all the includes. As I already said and mentioned, I do this so that we, don't have to do it over and over again, or every single time we add something new, I don't have to go back, include this, include that. So include the projectile animation, animInstance, Kismet, gameplay, statics, and the monster shooter game mode. I'm going to Control-Shift-B just to compile this, see if I, made a typo anywhere, but I'm also going to attach the shooting sound, and I'm also going to attach the projectile, and I'm going to attach the montage or the animation. Now, for whatever reason, it is taking a little bit too long for this to compile, so I'm simply going to wait, or now. Okay, now it is compiling. Okay, there you go. It has compiled. So let's go back here inside of our first-person shooter or monster character. Here he is. Open the blueprint and click on the top object over here. You see the top one, this one, so that now over here we are going to have the fire sound, the fire animation, and the projectile. So the fire sound is going to be weapon fire, so weapon fire 2, this is the fire sound. The fire animation is going to be again fire, and over here first person fire montage, and the projectile over here is going to be the BP projectile. Simple as that. So compile and save that. So now we can go back inside of our script and do, the rest, what we need to do. Now inside of begin play, where we are going to get some references. So we're going to say world is going to be equal to get world. So we're going to get that. We are also going to say our animInstance, and we're going to get that from the hands mesh. So our hands mesh, and from there we're going to say get animInstance. There you go. So this is the animInstance that we're going to get. And did we add the animInstance? Yes, animInstance. Why is this? instance. Okay, I didn't type it correctly. So anim instance. There you go. So now inside of our on fire, this is where we are going to do the fire. Whatever. I wanted to sing like that, you know, whatever. It's not important. Anyways, we're going to test if the world is not equal to null. So if we have the world, because the world is important to us, you are my world, I'm your world, and we are important to each other. So next over here, I'm going to say spawn rotation is going to be equal to get control rotation, and this is going to be the control rotation from the pawn character or our own character. Now, why am I testing if the world is not equal to null? Just so that we have a reference to the world, because the world is the one who is going to spawn the projectile, so we need to have the world. If we don't have it, we will not spawn the projectile. Our spawn location is going to be equal to, and over here we're going to perform some tests. So first we are going to say if our muzzle, so if the muzzle location is not equal to null PTR, and this is what we are testing, and if this allows me to test it out, so I believe this was okay, there you go. So null PTR, if muzzle location is not equal to null PTR with a question mark, we're asking this, then we're going to say over here muzzle location. From there we're going to say get component location, otherwise colon, over here we're going to say get actor location, and there you go, plus the spawn rotation dot rotate vector, and we're going to rotate by the gun offset, and there you go. And why is this giving me if muzzle location not equal to null PTR? So it's null PTR. There you go. Why was it giving me weird? Anyways, over here we're testing, or we're setting the spawn location to be equal to. We're first testing if the muzzle location is not equal to null pointer, meaning we have the muzzle location, we have created it because I told you we are going to use the muzzle location to shoot. So that is the location from where the projectile is going to fire. So that's why we need it. So if it's not equal to null pointer, then we are going to get the location of the muzzle. So if it's not equal to pointer, but this is just in case if we forget, for example, or this is a way to secure your code, let's say like that, so that you make it error proof. So if it is, so with the question mark, essentially what we're asking is this. So we're asking if the muzzle location, if it's not equal to null PTR like that, then over here we're going to do this. We're going to say our spawn location. So spawn location is equal to, and we're going to get that from the muzzle location. Else, so else over here, if that is not the case, so the muzzle location is equal to null PTR, then we're saying this. Spawn location is equal to all of this. So essentially this line of code, so from here up to here, is equal to all of this. So this is how you do it. I don't believe this is called a ternary operator. I don't, I forget the names, and I don't even bother to remember these names because the important thing is that you know what it is. Maybe for a job interview, you should know what it is. If they ask you, oh, what is a ternary operator? You should know the ternary operator is this. But for your own development, you just need to know how to use it. So don't bother that much. My advice. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. Comment down below what you think. But anyways, you denote it with a question mark. So you have a condition, then you add a question mark, and after that is the first condition. So if it's true, this will be executed, colon. If it's not true, then this will be executed. So again, this right here is equivalent to this right here. So this is what we are doing. Now moving forward, we are going to set spawn collision handling override. So over here, I'm going to say f actor spawn parameters, and I'm going to call it actor spawn params. And I'm going to say actor spawn params is, or dot spawn collision handling override is going to be equal to e spawn actor collision handling method, colon, adjust possible, but don't spawn if colliding. What the hell is this, teacher? You are confusing me. I don't know what it is. Well, don't, just calm down. I'm going to explain. So this fActor spawn parameters defines available strategies for handling the case where an actor is spawned in such a way that it penetrates blocking collision. Basically, when there is a danger that when you spawn an actor that it will collide right away with something at that point where you are going to spawn it, well, this defines how you're going to, or how that actor is going to handle that collision. Now, this adjust if possible, but don't spawn if colliding. This means that the actor will try to find a nearby non-colliding location based on the shape component, of course. So it's going to try to find a nearby non-colliding location, but will not spawn unless one is found. So if it sees that something is there and it can collide with it, it will not spawn. It will try to find near it, something, some location where it will not collide, and then it will spawn there. Essentially, this is what we are doing. And last but not least, we are simply going to say over here world spawn actor, and the actor that we are going to spawn from here, we are going to say a projectile. This is the actor that we are going to spawn. And who are we going to use as a reference? Well, our own projectile that we attached in the beginning of this video at the spawn location using the spawn rotation and actor spawn params. And there you go. So that's why we need to know if the world is not equal to null so that we can use it to spawn the projectile. And I can control shift B just to make sure that I didn't do any oopsies. You see the build has succeeded. Now I'm not sure if the sound is going to be heard because, I have the mic at the low input volume or low input level, which means I have my mic near my mouth. So this is why the sound is now crispy, And this is me bragging, but anyways, that is the reason why we cannot hear the shooting, but I will hope that it will be heard from the desktop because I'm recording desktop and audio at the same time. Anyways, moving forward, let's go here and test it out. So if I go here in the first person example map, there you go. Look at that. So we are shooting and it is shooting, but we are not animating and displaying the sounds. So there you go. We're shooting and doing all of that stuff. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. You see, destroy everything and it is working, yada, 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 yada. But we don't have the shooting sound and the animation. So we need to go here right below and we need to test. So basically outside of outside of this over here. So outside of the if statement for testing, but we can actually do it inside because it makes more sense to do it inside. We're going to test if our fire sound is not equal to null, meaning we have attached our fire sound. So we're going to call you gameplay statics. So gameplay statics. Hopefully it will, give it to me. There you go. Play sound at location. There you go. This and the fire sound is the one that we are going to play at the get actor location. There you go. So it's a good idea to actually call the code to play the sound if you want the sound to be played. And over here, if our fire animation is not equal to null and our anim instance is not equal to null, then we are going to call the anim instance from here to montage play. So montage underscore play, not player.